I never imagined I'd live to see the day when my own children would make me feel invisible. For 72 years, I've been the one holding our family together, birthdays, holidays, sickness, every emergency call in the middle of the night. "Mom, can you help?" they'd say, and I always did. Without hesitation, without complaint. But this year, when my birthday came around, the house was quiet. No phone calls, no visits, just silence. I tried to brush it off. Maybe they were busy, maybe they'd surprise me later in the day. Around noon, I made myself a cup of tea, sat by the window, and watched the neighborhood kids riding their bikes, their laughter echoing through the street. My heart felt heavier with every hour that passed. It wasn't until evening that I finally checked Facebook, a habit I rarely keep. And there it was. A flood of photos, stories, and videos from a surprise birthday bash for my daughter-in-law, hosted by my son and attended by every single one of my children. They looked so happy, so full of life, celebrating in a restaurant I'd never even been invited to. My birthday. Her party. The same day. I sat there, staring at the screen until my tea went cold. Not a single one of them had even sent a text. Not one. My chest tightened, and for the first time, I realized something painful. Maybe I wasn't part of their lives anymore. Maybe I was just an old memory they kept around out of obligation. That night, I decided something would change. I didn't know it yet, but that day marked the beginning of me leaving them behind, for good. The morning after that forgotten birthday, I woke up before sunrise. The house was silent, the kind of silence that hums in your ears. I sat at the edge of my bed, my hands resting on my knees, and whispered to myself, "No one is coming, Margaret." Not anymore. I walked into the kitchen and made coffee, the same way I've done every morning for decades. The mug felt heavier that day. Every corner of my home, every photo frame, every piece of furniture, seemed to remind me of all the times I had been there for them. Babysitting their children, cooking Sunday dinners, lending money I never asked back. I had poured everything into my family, and somehow, I ended up empty. That's when I made up my mind. I wasn't going to beg for love anymore. I wasn't going to sit by the phone waiting for someone to remember I exist. I would leave. Not in anger, not in revenge, but in peace. I started small. I went through my closet, sorting clothes into two piles, what I'd take and what I'd give away. I opened drawers filled with old cards and letters, rereading them one last time. Some made me smile, others made me cry. I burned a few of them in the fireplace that night, not out of hatred, but closure. No one called that day either. Not one of my children noticed I hadn't posted anything, hadn't replied to their daughter-in-law's party photos. They were too busy basking in their own happiness. By evening, I looked around my tidy living room and whispered, "It's time." I didn't know where I'd go yet, but anywhere would be better than staying where love had died. 2 days after my birthday, I packed a single suitcase. Not too big, just enough for the clothes I loved, a few books, and the old family photo album I couldn't bring myself to leave behind. I folded everything neatly, like I had done all my life, but this time, it felt different. There was no plan for anyone else. Just me. Before leaving, I took one last walk around the house. Every room carried echoes of laughter that used to fill these walls. Christmas mornings, noisy dinners, children running down the hallway. I stopped by the dining table where I used to serve big Sunday meals and ran my fingers across its surface. "You gave them everything," I whispered to myself, "and now you have to give yourself a chance." I left a note on the kitchen counter. Simple, honest, and brief. Greater than, "Don't worry about me. I'm fine. I just need time to find myself again. Love, Mom." Then I locked the door behind me. I didn't drive far, just 2 towns over, to a quiet coastal village I'd visited once with my late husband. I rented a small room above a bakery, the kind that always smelled of warm bread and coffee in the morning. The woman who owned it, Mrs. Green, greeted me with a gentle smile and no questions asked. For the first time in years, I felt free. That night, I walked down to the beach. The sky was painted with stars, the waves whispering secrets to the shore. I took off my shoes, let the cold water touch my feet, and breathed deeply. It was peaceful, so peaceful that I almost cried. For the first time in decades, I wasn't Mom. I wasn't Grandma. I was just Margaret. And though part of me ached with guilt for leaving, Another part whispered, finally, you did the right thing. It took them 3 days to notice I was gone. 3 whole days. I was sitting in the bakery that morning, sipping my coffee and reading the local paper when my phone, an old flip phone I'd kept for emergencies, began to buzz nonstop. Missed calls, messages. My son, my daughters, even my daughter-in-law. The same people who couldn't spare a minute on my birthday were suddenly desperate to find me. At first, I ignored it. I wanted to see how long their panic would last before it faded again into silence. But the calls kept coming. Mom, where are you? Please, just call us back. We're worried. Worried. That word made me laugh, quietly, bitterly. Where was that worry when I sat alone on my birthday? When I needed someone to talk to? Later that evening, I turned the phone on again. There were voicemails, some teary, some angry. My eldest son's voice cracked as he said, Mom, we're at your house. The neighbors said they saw you leave with a suitcase. Please, just tell us you're okay. A small part of me softened. I knew they weren't bad people, they were just too caught up in their own lives to notice mine. But I couldn't let guilt pull me back. I needed them to feel what I had felt, absence. I typed one short message and sent it to all of them. Greater than, I'm safe. I just need time. Don't look for me. Then I turned the phone off again. That night, I sat on the balcony of my small rented room, watching the moonlight ripple across the ocean. The silence was no longer painful, it was peaceful. I could hear my own thoughts again. I could breathe. Still, in the quiet of that night, I wondered how long it would take for them to understand why I had left. Or if they ever truly would. By the 5th day, my disappearance had become the family's emergency. My neighbor, Mrs. Peters, called to say the police had even stopped by my house, asking if she'd seen me leave. I wasn't missing, I had simply walked away. But to my children, it must have felt like the ground had vanished beneath their feet. I didn't answer any calls that week, but I knew what was happening through social media. My daughter, Lisa, had posted, greater than, please help us find our mother. She's 72 and left home without telling anyone. We're worried sick. Mom, if you see this, please come home. We love you. The post flooded with comments, neighbors, friends, even old acquaintances offering prayers and kind words. Some even said, your mom is the sweetest lady. I can't believe she'd just disappear. If only they knew. I watched it all unfold from the small bakery cafe where I now spent most of my mornings. Mrs. Green, the owner, noticed how quiet I'd been and gently asked, are you running from something, dear? I smiled sadly and replied, no, I'm running back to myself. Meanwhile, my children began retracing my steps. My eldest son checked bus stations, while my youngest contacted my doctor, thinking maybe I was sick. They searched hotels, called distant relatives, and even put up flyers in nearby towns. For the first time in years, they were united, not in celebration, but in worry. And though part of me was touched by their efforts, another part whispered that it shouldn't take losing someone to realize their worth. One afternoon, I finally broke my silence. I sent Lisa a letter, not an address, not a clue, just words they needed to hear. Greater than, you don't need to find me. You only need to remember me while I'm still alive. You all forgot me once, don't do it again. I'm safe, and I'm learning to live for myself. Love, Mom. I mailed it and watched the envelope disappear into the box. For the first time in my life, I didn't feel guilty. I felt heard. A week had passed since I sent that letter. I didn't expect them to understand right away, but what came next surprised me. Lisa was the first to respond. She didn't send another frantic message, or demand that I come home. Instead, she wrote a long email. I hesitated before opening it, but curiosity got the better of me. Her message began simply, greater than, Mom, you're right. We forgot you. I froze as I read on. Greater than, we thought you were always going to be there, waiting, helping, fixing. You never complained, so we assumed you were fine. But I see it now. We took your love for granted. I saw the photos from that party again, and I felt sick. You were sitting alone that day while we were laughing. I can't undo it, but I want to do better. Please, just let me know you're okay. Tears filled my eyes as I read her words. They weren't excuses. They were remorse. And that made all the difference. Over the next few days, the other kids began reaching out in softer ways, too. My son Mark sent me a voicemail, his voice trembling. Greater than, Mom. I looked around the house and realized every memory in there has your fingerprints on it. We were selfish. I'm sorry. Wherever you are, I hope you're eating well and sleeping peacefully. You deserve that much. I didn't respond, but I listened to that message every night before bed. Life in the little seaside town started feeling lighter. I walked the beach every morning, helped Mrs. Green in the bakery, and even joined a small reading club at the library. People knew me only as Margaret from the bakery, not as anyone's mother, not as someone forgotten. Just me. But as much as peace filled my days, a quiet ache still lingered. Not regret, but longing. Maybe one day I'd see them again. Maybe not. For now, I just wanted them to learn what I had finally understood. Love means showing up before someone disappears. It happened on a quiet Thursday morning. The air smelled of fresh cinnamon rolls, and the sea breeze drifted in through the bakery's open door. I was helping Mrs. Green arrange pastries in the display case when I heard the bell above the door chime, and froze. Mom. That voice. I would have known it anywhere. I turned slowly, and there stood Lisa, my eldest, her eyes swollen from crying, her hair windblown, her hands trembling. For a moment, neither of us spoke. The only sound between us was the faint hum of the coffee machine in my pounding heart. Lisa, I finally whispered. She rushed toward me, tears spilling down her cheeks. I found you, she said, her voice breaking. Mom, please, don't be mad. I just needed to see you. Mrs. Green, sensing the moment, quietly stepped into the back room. I stood there, torn between shock, relief, and 1,000 emotions I'd buried deep. How did you find me? I asked softly. Lisa pulled a crumpled envelope from her bag. The postmark, she said. It was faint, but it gave me a clue. I've been driving for 2 days. I sighed, not angry, just weary. You shouldn't have come all this way, sweetheart. Yes, I should have, she replied. I should have come years ago. I should have visited more, called more, loved you better. Her voice broke again. We all thought you'd always be there, Mom. We were so blind. I reached out and took her hands, cold, shaking, desperate. Lisa, I said gently, I didn't leave because I stopped loving you. I left because I needed to remember who I was outside of being your mother. She nodded through her tears. I understand that now. I really do. I don't want to lose you for good. For the first time in months, I pulled her into my arms. She sobbed against my shoulder, whispering, I'm so sorry, over and over again. I didn't answer. I just held her, letting years of hurt melt into that quiet embrace. When she finally pulled back, her face was streaked with tears, but there was light in her eyes again. Can I stay a few days? She asked. I hesitated, then smiled faintly. Just a few. It wasn't forgiveness yet, but it was a beginning. Lisa stayed 3 days in that little seaside town, and in that short time, we spoke more honestly than we had in decades. We walked the beach every morning, the waves brushing against our feet, and she listened, really listened, to what I had been carrying all these years. I told her about the loneliness that crept into my bones after her father passed, about the quiet birthdays, and the empty holidays where I'd cooked enough food for an army and eaten alone. She didn't interrupt. She just cried softly, sometimes reaching out to hold my hand. I thought I was doing fine, she said one evening as we sat watching the sunset. You always looked so strong, Mom. I never realized being strong can also mean being lonely. That sentence stayed with me. It was true. I had mistaken silence for strength, and they had mistaken my endurance for happiness. Before she left, Lisa promised she wouldn't pressure me to come home. When you're ready, she said, we'll be there, with open arms. This time, we'll show up. We hugged at the bus station. When she pulled away, I saw the same determination in her eyes that I used to see when she was little, the look of someone who finally understood. After she left, I walked back to the bakery, breathing in the scent of bread and salt air. Mrs. Green smiled knowingly and poured me a cup of tea. Family? She asked. Yes, I said, smiling. And maybe, a second chance. Weeks passed, and little by little, the calls from my children became more thoughtful. Not constant, but genuine. They didn't just ask if I was coming home, they asked how I was feeling, what I was reading, what the ocean looked like that morning. For the first time, they saw me. Not just the mother who gave, But the woman who was. I never did move back. The small seaside town had become my home. But I visited sometimes, birthdays, Christmases, quiet Sunday dinners that felt warmer now. I learned that leaving didn't mean cutting them off. It meant teaching them how to love better. And in the end, I didn't lose my family at all. I simply found myself. And they finally found me, too. The end.